What is the best ISO for real estate photography? Having covered aperture and shutter speed, it makes perfect sense for me to explore ISO and real estate photography, which I will do right here. And don't worry, I will keep this simple for all our sakes. This is a simple answer, thankfully, if to a complicated question. Hi and welcome to my YouTube channel. I'm Rick McAvoy. It's going to be a shorter one this week because it's a simple answer to is it a simple question? The answer is thankfully. So let's just get straight into this. This won't be as long as usual ones, but not a bad thing probably. Okay, so the best ISO for real estate photography. It's the lowest base ISO that your camera has, which is typically going to be in the ISO 100 to ISO 400 range. Now, the lowest base ISO will give you the highest quality images. Higher ISO settings should only be used when needed to get a fast enough shutter speed to avoid camera shake. And then you should use the lowest ISO that you can to get sharp photos with. Right then, that's it. Nice and simple. So thanks for no, I'm just kidding. So not a lot to say on this one really. Aperture was critical because that was about the quality of the image, the sharpness of the subject matter and the amount of depth of field. So aperture critical. Shutter speed. Well, I'm using a tripod. That's why I can use the lowest ISO possible. So taking photos on a tripod, ISO and shutter speed, I can pick the ISO that I want for quality, and the camera can pick the shutter speed to give me the correct exposure. So it is that simple. Not a lot more to say, so I'm not going to say any more on that one. Next week we've got something a bit different. I've talked about aperture, shutter and ISO in the context of real estate photography. So what I'm going to do in the next episode of my blog post, which I haven't written yet, I'm not going to lie to you, but it's in a draft and I know what I want to say because I know what I need to say. I'm going to put context to all of these things, aperture, shutter and ISO and the exposure triangle in practical real life terms which you can apply in real estate photography. And to be fair to architectural photography, construction photography, and to be honest with you, I do the same for landscape and travel photography. So let me just fly through the blog post published today and see what there is. Now I use a lowest base ISO of 100. What else we got? What does ISO stand for? Well, we don't really care, do we? It's just something. So low ISO, better than a high ISO. What do these numbers mean? ISO 100 to 200 is a doubling of the sensitivity of the camera sensor to light. It's known as a one-stop range and it's the same as an f-stop. More on that in my podcast. Or a full stop adjustment of the shutter speed. And that's the bit about the exposure triangle that works. If you want to get a lower ISO, if you've got a camera setting and you need to get a lower ISO for the quality, you have to use a slower shutter speed or a larger aperture to compensate and still get the correct exposure. Okay, I'm trying to talk now to fill up 6 minutes, so I'm going to stop there because what I've always promised myself is that I won't just talk for the sake of it just to fill up a target time that somebody told me once was relevant. Thanks for watching. Please check out the Rapidly Improving Photography Explained podcast, all good podcast providers, and the podcast website photographyexplainedpodcast.com. Check out my website rickmcavoyphotography.com and check out my courses page where I've got my real estate photography course, rickmcavoyphotography.com/courses, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers from me, Rick.